Hello, it's Stuart the Unrepentant Atheist. This is my weekly Roundup video. So I make one of these a week just to discuss issues which have cropped up on my channel, maybe to talk about one or two other things which are not directly related to the channel, which I think might be interesting to put in this video. So just one quick question. For those of you who've been around for quite a while with my channel, you'll remember the days before I used a microphone, a headphone. And this thing that I'm using is actually like a gaming headset, and I just wondered, how do you find the quality of the audio with my voice and everything? Do you find it acceptable, or do you think I should go out and spend $200 on one of these things that Matt uses and Alex? So just wondered whether you think it would make a significant difference. I actually think it's quite reasonable for the amount of money that I spent on this thing, which is in American money, say about $20 US. Okay, so just moving on. So some issues have cropped up on the channel. I do welcome that people leave comments, and it's interesting to read through them. It's the first thing I look at every morning when I get up. I like to see what kind of comments have been left. So there's been quite a lot to do with Matt. I've made some videos which have kind of highlighted the way that Matt is handling a lot of the calls. I did make one video showing that over the years he's progressively becoming more prickly and less patient with people. I didn't really imply this as criticism, because obviously he feels that the way that he's dealing with people is the best way for the work that he's doing. He may even admit that maybe he's going a bit too far with his anger problem. Some people have said that he needs to get anger management counseling, this type of thing. The only thing that interests me about Matt is the quality of his rebuttals. Now, people have said to me in various other spheres of life, I mean, just to quote an example, boxing, for example. Boxing. I don't know. I used to follow boxing, not so much now, but I used to be a fan of the golden era, I suppose you could call it, kind of 1950s and 60s, when Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Robinson, and some of these great boxers were around. I'm quite a sort of fan of that era. There was one boxer by the name of Jake LaMotta, who some of you may have heard of, middleweight champion. As a boxer, I admire him enormously, and I respect his achievements in the ring. He had a granite jaw, and he fought like a lion. He could absorb a lot of punishment. As a ring artist, as a fighter, I really admire him. Now, some people have said to me, you do realize he beat his wife, don't you? Yes, I acknowledge that. He was violent with women. Yes, indeed. I don't endorse him as a character. The only thing that interests me about Jake LaMotta is the quality of his boxing craft and skill. Nothing else about him interests me, and the fact that he beat his wife, beat women, etc., that is something which does not really come into it for me. If I admire somebody for professional sportsmanship or whatever, or scientists, and I'm commenting only on that skill, I'm only evaluating them on that skill. I'm not evaluating them as a whole person. So it doesn't stop me from admiring somebody, even when I know that they've done horrible things, because I'm admiring them for the skill. Okay, now let's move on to Matt. Yes, he does get rude with people, he gets angry with people, etc., and maybe he does go too far. But in my opinion, his skill, his range of abilities and knowledge in dealing with apologetics is probably second to none. He probably can deal with virtually any argument which is thrown at him, and I don't know of any other counter apologist that can really do that. Maybe there are some, but I still think he's impressive, despite the fact that he's obviously got this anger thing, which I agree with a lot of people. It's not really the way to be going, and there is a danger that if he continues with it and it gets worse, that could be used by apologists to say that look at what atheism and skepticism has done to Matt Dillahunty. And that could then sort of weaken the cause. Yeah, I can see that argument. This moves on to, somebody made the comment that a lot of Matt's fanboys are virtually worshipping Matt in the same way that theists are worshipping their gods. Now, I did post some rebuttals to this. In fact, I will post a link below, so you can go and look at that discussion if you want to see whether you agree with that commenter or whether you agree with what I'm saying, which is that, you know, I don't really see that no matter how much you admire somebody, no matter how much even maybe you adore somebody, that it could really be compared with religious worship. It seems to me that it's an argument put forward by theists to say, well, you atheists, you've got your gods too. You've got Richard Dawkins, you know, you've got Sam Harris, you've got Matt Dillahunty, and we've got our gods. We've got Jesus, Jehovah, whoever. And really, you're just in the same boat as us. You just worship different gods. I don't really buy that. I don't really buy it at all. And the reason being that worship, I'm going to read something here from Wikipedia because I think that it kind of nails what worship is. Worship is an act of religious devotion usually directed towards a deity. Okay, usually directed towards a deity. It may involve one or more of activities such as veneration, adoration, praise and praying. For many, worship is not about an emotion, it is more about a recognition of a god or gods. The thing is, with people who worship gods, it's something which follows them around. It follows their thoughts around, it follows all their actions. It more or less dictates their worldview. I suppose it's like, no, it's not like that. Forget that thought. I was going to say something silly. No. Yeah, so, I mean, with me, I mean, let's take me as an example. I wouldn't call myself a fanboy of Matt, but okay, I admire him. I mean, I admire his range of abilities. I don't adore him, of course not. So I admire Matt's range of abilities, and I think that most of the so-called fanboys that Matt has got probably, you know, they would probably more or less say the same. They admire and respect. They've got a healthy admiration and respect for what he's achieved, the way that he's taken on apologetics head on in quite a forceful and effective way. So if you compare that with somebody who worships Jesus, they wake up in the morning and they say a prayer to Jesus. They think about their God. They think about how much they love Jesus. They're looking around for signs from Jesus all the time. Some of them imagine that Jesus talks to them. So he's like a kind of invisible friend that is continually following the worshipper around. They may or may not go to church. They've got a holy text. They've got their Bible, which, you know, a lot of them might wash their hands before they touch it, or they might reserve a particular time of the day to come to the Bible, maybe at a little kind of shrine in their house and open it up and read some verses. And it's really quite a big thing to worship a god. It's something which is with you all the time, and it encapsulates your entire meaning of life. That's worship. It's not worship to have a healthy respect and admiration for an intellectual who is fighting a cause. I think that's something entirely different. So I'd like to know what your opinion on that is. Are Matt's most gushing fanboys in any way worshipping him in any similar way to how Christians worship Jesus? What do you think about that? I personally think it's a lot of nonsense. I don't think it's true at all. It's something which is normally, as I say, normally brought up by theists to say, oh, you just got your own gods, you've got Richard Dawkins, etc. I think it's just, it's also a way of avoiding the issues. So I don't agree with it, but if people believe that, they're entitled to their opinion, of course. So I'm just thinking, is there anything else that I wanted to say about that? There was something on the tip of my tongue about that issue of worship. Oh yeah, I suppose the closest I've got to worshipping a human being. Okay, I might have mentioned it before. I'm a big fan of classical music. I also like rock and pop, by the way. I'm not just sort of, I don't close my mind to other art forms, but my own, favorite composer, for example, is Mozart. I've been a big fan for about 35 years. I've got a set here of 180 CDs with his entire works in it. I went to the Royal College of Music about 10 years ago, and they had a kind of Mozart day, and I sat in the library, and I was incredibly lucky that when I was there, they had an original autograph score of Mozart's Piano Concerto in C minor K491. Now, this is dare I say it, this is like the Holy Grail. Now people can say, see, Stuart, you do worship somebody, you worship Mozart, but this is like, for me, to lay my hands on this manuscript. It's the closest I can think of to kind of coming to a Bible in terms of, a Christian, because it's got so much meaning for me to come that close to the pen of Mozart. But is that the same as venerating the Holy Bible? I mean, for me, it's about kind of love and respect for the composer, and obviously I've taken a lot from that particular music, and I'll be surprised if somebody will say, see, Stuart, you do worship somebody, but no, I still don't think that I worship Mozart. I do adore, I do adore Mozart because of the sheer beauty of the music, and I think that he's right up there with Shakespeare and some of the other great artists. But I still think it falls short of religious devotion. I really do. And in any case, we know that Mozart existed. For people who say that Matt has got worshippers, well, if you want to say that, okay, go ahead. I think it's absurd, but at least we know Matt exists. So there's still, in my book, people who worship Matt get down on their knees every morning and worship a picture of him at a shrine in their house. At least we know Matt exists, eh? So crazy, really. But let me know. I'll be really interested if you've got any comments on that. Moving on, because I've got to keep this video less than 20 minutes. So I want to make a few comments. So Forrest Valkai, I did make 1 or 2 videos, and he falls short in many respects. I've made 1 or 2 critical comments. I don't think he's on the ball with logic, on the same level as Matt, for example, and maybe even some of the others. But I must admit that when it comes to biology, when it comes to chemistry, I love him to be around, because when somebody phones in about, evolution or abiogenesis, when he starts talking about the way that molecules behave, he just absolutely leaves them for dead. I absolutely love it. When somebody calls in, they've done maybe 20, 30 minutes of research somewhere, and they start calling in about nucleotides, etc., blah, blah, blah. He will absolutely leave them standing. They go completely silent. And really, when a Christian calls in with science, say, oh, science proves God, the best thing you can do is have somebody there who really knows what he's talking about and completely silence them, because I don't think these people realize how complex science is and how difficult it can be to comprehend. And they're like kindergarten children in the scientific world, and they're telling you that science proves God. I think it's hilarious. So yeah, for that reason, I think Forrest Valkai is absolutely phenomenal to have around when questions like that come in. But I do think he needs to be partnered up with somebody who's ready for, some of the philosophical arguments and some of the logic, dealing with some of the logic. So anyway, that's my opinion. And this channel is all about my opinion, really, and reflecting on, obviously, as I do, on apologetics and counter-apologetics. One more thing to finish off with. I mentioned to you a few weeks ago that there was a Christian who asserted that nobody really who believes in evolution has read Origin of the Species by Darwin. And I made some comments about that. some people made some very good comments in response, which I could have put to him if I'd wanted to put him down. Like, well, actually, hardly any Christians have read the Bible. But the thing is, he's in a social group that I meet up with, a group of guys. We get together and talk about various things. It's quite valuable to me, actually. I quite enjoy it. And I don't want to put him down. I don't want to put his religion down, because I value too much the group to create bad feeling. And to be honest with you, we've got a rule in that group that we don't talk about religion. So I want to avoid it. But at that group last week, there was an interesting question that came up. And the question that was asked to each one of us was that if we could go back in time to any era, when would we go to and why? So I found it quite interesting, some of the responses. A lot of guys, for example, one guy said, I'll keep this in very general terms, but he more or less said that he'd like to go back to the night he met his first wife. And he'd like, as he was going into this pub where he met her, for a group of hoodlums to come up to him and duff him up, beat him up and put him in hospital. And they said, well, why? I said, well, so that he never would have met his wife. He never would have married this woman. And I think I said to him, did you have any children? He said, well, yeah, I had a couple of children. I said, well, you realize that then your children wouldn't exist. You want to wish them out of existence, do you? And he said, I would have still had them, but with another woman. Well, it doesn't really work like that. I mean, my response when it came to my turn to talk was that I would not go back to any era of my own life and try and correct mistakes that I'd made or try and change something, because the circumstances of my life, exactly as they played out, brought me to the healthy and reasonable position that I'm in now, sitting talking to you guys. And I wouldn't want to risk it being any other way. Because obviously if I went back and changed something, who knows? I mean, I'm 58 now, who knows? I might have been killed, I don't know, in some accident or something like that, just by changing the past. So no, I would want everything to play out exactly as it did, so that I can be here now, healthy and well, with my future ahead of me, however many years I've got left. But I did actually say, yes, if pushed to choose, I would go back. And of course, I mentioned Mozart in this video. I would want to go back to Vienna in the 70s, 80s and actually see Mozart and maybe see him conduct one of his operas. I mean, that for me would be like if I could somehow go back and not affect anything, I would find that very interesting. And I was surprised that the guy who's religious, the Christian, I thought that when it came to him, he couldn't really, he kind of dithered around and he couldn't really choose anything. I think he was an orphan. I think he said something like he would like to go back and see who his real father was. Quite sad, really. But I would have thought that as a Christian, any Christian would want to go back to the day that Jesus was crucified and see if it really happened. And not only that, but hang around to see if he was really resurrected. I didn't say that. It was on the tip of my tongue, but, we've got this rule not to talk about religion. Okay, that's it. That's everything. There's loads more I could talk about, but I'm going to keep this under 20 minutes. If you're still with me, roughly about 40% of people who watch my videos get to the end of them. So if you're still with me, you're one of the 4 in 10. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back again with another video soon. Hope you enjoy my new uploads this week. Bye for now.